DataStax was born in 2010 when it was very clear that you needed a database that scaled, giving them the opportunity to not lose any of the greatness of Cassandra, but bringing it to the cloud has been something that we've been helping our customers with.
Good data available, because
Correct.
good data is what builds data applications.
Correct.
And now we're pivoting to Gen AI.
Predictive AI, or let me go even further back, predictive analytics as a space did not take off. Not that it wasn't used, but it did not become a category by itself that changed the world.
So yeah, now that we have established, Chet, you are the Taylor Swift of the data world. I am very excited to have this chat. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I want to start at the very beginning, right? I want to start with DataStax. I know our conversation is around the data infrastructure, which is a very important conversation today. And its marriage with AI and data science is one of the most hot topics, especially with Gen AI. But let's start with DataStax. Let's tell the world what is DataStax, what is some of the work, what does cloud and infrastructure have an important role to play with it?
DataStax was born in 2010 when it was very clear that you needed a database that scaled in a massive way, and other databases were not getting it done. It actually was a project that came out of Facebook. Jonathan Ellis, one of the co-founders of the company, created this project in Apigee called Apigee Cassandra, and we were born as a company. And we've been extremely successful since then. So let me give you a different view. Your audience probably uses Netflix, uses Spotify, buys a coffee for Starbucks, buys a phone. All of those things, tracks a package on FedEx, all of those things happen based on Apigee Cassandra technology. We've participated in making that technology come to the world. Recently, over the last 4 years, we've taken this awesome database, a very scalable database, and made it available as a cloud service. And a cloud service in the most modern of ways, by making it serverless, by separating compute and storage. That has been a phenomenal growth driver for us because people have been going from self-managed to cloud with their mission-critical apps, and we are part of the mission-critical stack. And so giving them the opportunity to not lose any of the greatness of Cassandra, but bringing it to the cloud has been something that we've been helping our customers with. That's been outrageously successful. And then recently, we are geeks, we're technologists, so we actually love what we do and we want to be on the forefront of things, and our customers expect us to do that. We saw OpenAI start taking off, and we actually started talking about it internally in November of last year. And we decided in March that we were going to pivot the company. So we started out as a database company. We became a database as a service company, a cloud company. And we decided earlier this year to become entirely a generative AI company and focus on that. And so that has been a welcome change for our customers and, more importantly, for our developers. And our goal is to give them all the flexibility of a vector database built on Apigee Cassandra, as well as make sure that it is available in their ecosystem. Because developers use tools, and we need to make sure that our products work really well with those tools.
Got it. How does that transition go about? And I think that kind of aligns with the conversation that we are trying to have, right? You were a database company, mainly working at the intersection of infrastructure and making good data available.
Correct.
Because good data is what builds data applications.
Correct.
And now you're pivoting to Gen AI. How is that marriage coming? Why were you well positioned to do that? That probably answers the kind of question as to the interplay between AI and modern day infrastructure.
It was very clear to us, probably earlier than most people, not all people, but earlier than most people, that people are going to start building enterprise Gen AI apps beyond ChatGPT. There's a promise of LLMs, which is beautiful for the world. But there's going to be an aspect of this where people are going to leverage LLMs, but they're going to build enterprise apps. What does DataStax do? We have the enterprise data, right? So we were convinced that for customers and for our enterprise customers that we work with, and for developers that build apps, they needed to combine LLMs with enterprise data, because you're not going to fine tune, personal data about Chet in OpenAI. You're going to keep that separate, but you need to combine the two to give you accurate answers. And so our take was we needed to support vector capabilities because that's the language, embeddings of the language that large language models speak. And how do we bring other techniques like RAG to actually bring that together so that people can build accurate and relevant applications? So we saw that early and started driving really hard and running right in front of the parade to make that happen. It's been great so far.
Yeah. But I'm sure that in this entire journey, right, of generative AI and the interplay of infrastructure that you are working at, and I think it's a very unique perspective on offering as a service technology, right? I've been studying the market for a while, and I don't think there is a company at doing that at scale in such a way. What are some of the challenges that you face, right? Because Gen AI, now I've seen some Gen AI applications in production. 3 months ago, everybody was saying it's all on a shelf.
Yes.
What are some of the challenges that you faced in this transition?
So let's start with to build a Gen AI app, you need to worry about 3 things. One is it's got to be easy to use. That means the developer experience needs to be easy. If it's too hard, like if a developer needs to learn machine learning, it's not going to work. They cannot understand foundational models. They should be able to use foundational models, but they don't need to understand how foundational models are built. So ease of use becomes really, really important. And they're going to the ease of use is not about graphic user interfaces, it's about APIs and making sure you cater to specific languages like JavaScript and Python and things like that. And making sure you work with the right frameworks, like things like LangChain, Llama Index, and other things like that. And the third thing is make sure you have an easy to use vector database. But ease of use becomes important because we've seen this before, and you're aware of this. Predictive AI, or let me go even further back, predictive analytics as a space did not take off. Not that it wasn't used, but it did not become a category by itself that changed the world. And the reason it didn't, because it was not easy to use. You need to have very specialized skills to do predictive analytics. So every wave that has happened before this has made it really easy for developers to build applications. So that's the first one. Secondly, you need to make sure you have production features, right? You need to make sure you have scale, you have throughput, you have availability. But the most important thing on the production piece is you need price performance. Because, budgets are not going to double.
No.
Right? So they need to fit in an envelope. Yes, you will have some additional spend, but they need to fit in an envelope. So production becomes really important. The third one is interesting. I've been doing this for a while. Generally, when you build apps, you think about ease of use and scale, or think of ease of scale and production and ease of use and developer experience production. There's a new metric that you need to worry about, and that's called relevance. Right? And so now developers have to think about what F1 is. They have to think about what precision is. They need to figure out what recall is. They don't need to know all the details of it, but it becomes a new metric. So I think that the learnings for our developers and for us has been that it is a combination of you got to make it easy. You got to make sure that it is production AI, right? And the third thing is you have to make sure it's relevant.
Relevance, the second point was on
ease of use and production.
Ease of use and production. Okay. Yeah, I think one of the points that, especially when it comes to my mind with regards to production, is right. You talked about the foundational models and the relevance of it, right? Especially when it comes to the building of Gen AI applications and its technological interplay with the modern infrastructure. One of the things is that before 1 year, there was no role specifically dedicated to this, right? There was no Gen AI developer or a Gen AI engineer, right? But today they have some of the most adaptive data and analytics professionals have survived this wave, right? And they have come through to kind of work across a stack, like a data stacks, if I may call it.
Yes.
Right? And to be able to build it. You have built it in your company.
Correct.
Because that's what you're offering essentially. What did it take to build that team. How did you manage the roles across it? Because there was no Gen AI before this thing. Of course, we were doing some kind of probably chatbots or some kind of interplay, but how did you build that talent to kind of enable it?
2 points, and then I'll explain further. Having been through a few waves before, I've saw client server, I saw the web, I've seen mobile, I've seen cloud happen. Whenever you're in the beginning of the wave, the amount of iteration, the speed of iteration happens quite a bit. And so you have to just make sure you're focused on it. One of the most important things was to start taking an outside-in view of everything. So that was really, really important. Like, what does the developer really need? And more importantly, what developers are the ones that are going to be the kingmakers or the change makers? The second thing beyond the developer was what their needs were. The second that was clear is that the velocity of change is going to be very high in the beginning, right? And so it was important for us to pick a team of people that were deep computer scientists who understood AI, who understood Gen AI, but also very much understood that things are going to change very quickly, and we are catering to the developer. Now, let me point out something on the developer piece. We sometimes, as technologists, as folks in the industry, get nuanced on personas. And we sometimes land up going after a small base of developers. Data engineers, as a good example. How many data engineers in the world? Less than 1 million. Probably 800,000.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 million. How many JavaScript developers in the world? 20 million.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's really important to understand that if Gen AI is going to be successful, and I think it will be successful, it is really, really important to understand that it needs to be something that JavaScript developers will have to do. And that was our perspective on this. This is not to say that, data scientists cannot use Python to do this, ML ops cannot use to do this, but if you don't make it available to a broad set of developers, this wave will not be successful. Why was the web successful? Because of HTML, right? Why was mobile successful? Because an average developer could use Xcode to make it happen. Why was cloud successful? Because it was so accessible. You could go to AWS and say, I want to pay by the second, I want to pay by the minute. That is what Gen AI needs to become. It cannot be esoteric technology that only a subset of the entire technical population understands. That was our true north.
I'm seeing a lot of clarity in terms of what the pathway should be, right? Moving from a database company to a database as a service company to a Gen AI company, you obviously were building on your one strength to build another strength,
Correct.
right? Not every company has this
Correct.
kind of, unless they kind of subscribe to DataStax services.
Yes.
What is your advice for companies who are trying to work at the interplay of both? And they have to, right, at this point, because the kind of models that we are building are so intensive and heavy in terms of the compute power needed and the flexibility and scalability of databases, not just in terms of the size, but also the kind of different varieties of data that are there. What is your advice if somebody wants to start on that journey?
If you're running a product company and you're thinking about bringing this into play, I'll give you the consumer side as well. Let me start by one statement. Don't fake it. You cannot read and learn and become an expert. You have to have experience and have to have lived it. And it is very clear to me that the reason why we will be successful is because we've been building database as a service for a long time. We understand the mechanics of data. But the other part is we also understand the mechanics of what it takes to build apps. Right? And that's my personal experience, a lot of the leadership team. And that's why we are able to bring this together and take advantage of it. So if you're running a product company and you have experience in one or the other, make sure you get experienced people who have done the other part that you haven't done, because you won't be able to fake it. This market's going really fast and people need real products to solve real problems.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very different answer from what I expected. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Don't fake it. Okay. Yeah. And with regards to the overall, so we talked about the talent, we talked about the technology, right? The other thing is, as we go forward, things are going to change.
Yes.
Right? they have always changed in the world of AI and data science. Where do you see this interplay between infrastructure and uh, data analytics, AI, going? In the near future, 1 or 2 years probably is predictable, but what are your predictions in the next 5 to 10 years, which may or may not turn out true because nobody can predict AI world?
I'll give you two different answers. One is, I think from a consumer perspective, you're going to see Gen AI show up everywhere. It'll show up on your phone, it'll show up in search, it'll show up. ChatGPT is used often. I heard something the other day that somebody is using ChatGPT to brainstorm. So they literally put ChatGPT on listen mode. It records the entire conversation and then gives them a summary of what their thoughts were. So it's seeping into our lives all the time. It certainly dominated my dinner night conversations. On the enterprise side, I think people will start with incremental use cases. They will do things like chatbots and copilots, which are great. But I think the real fun starts when they do transformative use cases. When they start talking about, agents being, people with agents rather than just people by itself. When they started thinking about new revenue models, that's when things will really start changing. I see a world 5 or 10 years from now where it is not people versus AI. It is people with AI versus people without.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the people with AI will win. Just like people with paper maps are not as efficient as people with Google Maps, right? And so we've already proven that again and again and again. And I think this will show up in everything we do. I think it is going to transform the P&L of a lot of different companies. It is going to change how they work. It is going to change how they partner. It's going to change how they serve their customers. It is going to be probably one of the most significant technology or industrial revolutions that have ever happened before. And I think over a 5 or 10 year period, what we will realize is that what we realize with every industrial revolution, that it helps us become more productive. What happens when a company becomes more productive?
It makes more money.
What happens when it makes more money? It hires more people.
It has.
So guess what? People are concerned about job losses. Obviously, there will be some as we go through the transition.
Yeah.
But over time, if productivity increases, so will jobs. So I'm actually excited about that over a period of time. Now, people will have to retrain and reskill and things like that. But we as a society, as a human race, have figured this out many times before in the last 500 years.
Yeah, I think that's a very it's a good divergent to the conversation that we are having, right? And as we come to the close, I think it's an important thing to address, right? As we move to the world of powerful infrastructure and the enabled Gen AI by it, what are some of your closing thoughts with regards to this, right? Because while you did say that when a company makes money, it will hire more people. What if it ends up, while a company makes more money, some people only become rich and then they don't hire anybody because productivity has been automated in a lot of ways, right? In the past, whenever we have automated things, it has created, in fact, more jobs.
Correct.
Right? Because more intelligent jobs.
Correct.
Right? But now we are making automation intelligent.
Yes.
How do you envision this future?
It will always require human judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a quote from Vinod Khosla recently. He said between 5 and 10 years, AI will be able to do 80% of 80% of jobs,
Okay.
right? I don't know whether it's 5 years, whether it's 5 years or 10 years, or whether it's 10 years or 20 years. They will do a percentage of the jobs, just like I talked about maps. As an example, I used to be able to go and read a map, and now I don't need to. I just talk about the location and it goes and does it. That's easier for me because I can do other things. I think the same thing will happen with many other tasks that we do on a regular basis. But I will land up you will need 20% of jobs that won't be replaced, and 20% of that particular job, right? You will need human interactions. And when that happens, we as a society, a human race, will figure out a way to do other things where we can innovate on, to create, to prosper, like we have when we've gone through other industrial revolutions. I am bullish about working through the ethics issues, working through the governance issues, working through the societal issues of these things, because we have in the past.
Yeah.
Why will this be any different? And this is the first time, at least on the waves I've been through, where now governments, rightly or wrongly is not the point because we'll figure this out, are now starting to engage much earlier than they have in the past.
Okay.
So I think some will say it'll stifle the competition, and my take is yes, it might. But at least we're engaged in a conversation, in a dialogue on figuring out how good is artificial general intelligence coming now? When is it coming? How does it affect people? How does it affect economies? All those conversations are happening today. My closing thoughts are really simple. There is no AI without data.
Mm-hmm.
And we love where DataStax is positioned because we bring data to AI so that you can create more relevant apps. The second thing is face the issues that we have with this new industrial revolution head on, because I think it's people with AI versus people without. And you never want to be on the other, you don't want to be on the backside of this. So I continue to be super excited.
On that note, thank you so much, Chet, for making the time. I think
Thank
it's
you.
been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
I think it adds a lot of value for the ecosystem to kind of see the interplay between infrastructure. I think DataStax is doing amazing work, and
Thank you.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.